Tonight's first reading, is from Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 15. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, everyone into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. In that region, there were shepherds living in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. Then an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid, for see, I am bringing you good news of great joy for all the people. To you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign for you. You will find a child wrapped in bands of cloth and lying in a manger." And suddenly there was with the angel, a multitude of heavenly hosts, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace among those whom he favors." When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let us go now to Bethlehem and see this thing that has taken place, which the Lord has made known to us."
Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east of Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him." And Herod sent them to Bethlehem, and said, "Go and search diligently for the young child, and when ye have found him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also." When they heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way.
Right at the turn of the millennium, early in the year 2000, I had the privilege of being part of a remarkable journey. I was in South Africa for the first half of that year doing field research on the Truth and Reconciliation process being led by Desmond Tutu. I had for several months been carrying out interviews with apartheid's advocates and victims, its enforcers and its survivors, with Africans and Afrikaners, with those orphaned by violence, sometimes from parts of themselves. I was completely enthralled with this broken and beautiful country. South Africa felt like a wounded limb, weaving its tissues back together again with great pain and energy. But I paused my research to go on a canoe trip. It was in a remote section of the Orange River where it ran through a desert mountain range forming the border with Namibia. This trip was remarkable because just a handful of years earlier, it would have been impossible. It would have been illegal even. Our party of about a dozen people included blacks and whites, mixed race people, and a sprinkling of foreigners like me. We were co-led by black and white guides. There was a mixed race couple on the trip. We were going to pass through very harsh, very remote terrain and wrestle with rapids that I was pretty sure were beyond my skills. Camping for a couple of days at our launch site to pack and train, our little community became, at least in my eyes, an encapsulation of the whole nation of South Africa. A diverse group with common purpose that would have to bind together to face the dangers ahead. As preachers are wont to do, I began to develop in my head a romantic narrative about our group and our adventure. In the coming days, the romance was sorely tested. We struggled with sunburn and sickness, scorpions and serpents, but mostly we struggled with the river. You see, our guides had paddled this stretch of the Orange River many times, but they had never been on this river. Do you remember those great floods in southern Africa of 2000? You remember the images from Mozambique? People being plucked off rooftops and out of trees by helicopter? Well, all that water was making its way to the sea right at that moment, much of it through the Orange River. And so we were paddling a river that was completely changed. Where shallow, flat water was expected, there were now raging rapids. Where rapids were expected, there were now whirlpools. We suffered a number of calamities. I watched as a canoe got sucked into a whirlpool, stood up on end, and flushed down as though in a toilet. The canoe and its contents reemerged in pieces. A broken hull, a man with a broken arm, and a paddle snapped in half. My canoe mate and I got in a heated argument in the middle of a rapid, disagreeing about strategy. We got turned sideways, hit a standing wave, and I watched her be ejected out of the stern of the boat and onto a large rock. And I had to struggle to turn around in the bow, making it the stern, and paddle through all that foam, wondering whether my stupidity and my temper had been the end of her. One night, a leopard wandered through our camp. In another mishap, a man broke his tailbone after spilling in a rapid. By the last night, we were pretty broken. Listening to the raging rapids downstream and knowing that the last day would involve hours of whitewater, we sat sullenly around the campfire. All the beer and all the bravado were gone. Seemingly, so was the solidarity. In fear and fatigue, the unlovely parts of ourselves had been exposed. My romantic narrative seemed foolish. Sometimes I try to remember that moment of disillusionment when I read the Christmas story. The Christmas story is one of journeys. We paint them with allure. We idealize them. But Joseph and Mary's journey to Jerusalem was anything but romantic. It would have been brutal. Scorching days, freezing nights, cruel terrain, fear of bandits, hospitality refused. They too would have turned to recrimination and blame. The journey of the Magi also would have been fraught. They would be people of privilege, but that would not have protected them from fleas or camel sores, the violence of brigands, or the cunning of men like Herod. And don't talk to me about the shepherds. The shepherds were not those freshly scrubbed, cute creatures we're used to seeing at Christmas pageants. They were the poorest of the poor, the smelliest of the smelly, the lowest of the low, almost untouchables in that society. And when the angels showed up to them, what did they feel? Terror. But here's the rub, friends. If we allow the romance of Christmas pageantry to disguise the danger and suffering, then these journeys are robbed of their real power. For the story has real power. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. Not through strength, not through wholeness, not through romance, not through triumph, through the cry of a child birthed in the midst of fear in a barn. This may be the most real Christmas service we can have. Right now, not doing it as we would have chosen, dealing with fear and frustration and knowing there are rapids ahead, this may be the closest we can come to a true experience of Christmas. Not through triumph, not through strength, through the cry of a child born in a barn. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light got in on the banks of the Orange River. Our heavy silence was broken when our Afrikaner guide picked up a guitar and our African guide began to sing in a soft voice. I can't even remember the songs, but I can remember the tone of his voice. It was soft. It was halting. People began to join him tentatively. And then the voices created a container that could hold all that we were feeling. And then a queer thing happened. The light changed. There was no great star hovering over us like a star at Bethlehem, but the many stars in the sky grew closer, and their crystalline clarity lit up the desert hills from which we could hear the occasional cry of a mountain cat. The river became molten silver, unbelievably beautiful. As the singing faded, we were held by something much larger than all of us. A light shining on and through each of us. African and Afrikaner, woman and man, straight and queer, white, brown, and black, magi and shepherd. I use the word God for what held us. Others on the trip wouldn't. But I don't really think that matters. I think we got an inkling of Bethlehem magic on that night. A moment of stillness in the journey. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. We slept well. The next morning we ate well and then slipped onto the river and into the rapids with quiet confidence. Black, white, brown, shepherd and magi. And back in Bethlehem, after the visits of the shepherds and the magi, after the proclamations, after the wonder, after a moment of stillness on the journey, what next? To rise again, to feel the fear again, to join another perilous journey, this time to Egypt, that land of slaveholders seeking safety. But now with the light inside. And here we are, friends, in a moment of stillness between journeys. Bloor Street United has many miles behind it, some of them marked by smooth flowing water, some marked by Class 5 rapids, some by seemingly endless portages or being bogged down with no visible progress. At times, you have acted with skill and courage. At other times, you bickered in the white water, got turned sideways, and hit the rocks. Tomorrow's journey is unknown. We go into COVID world without our home. Even this night isn't as we would have it. We would have sung ourselves out of this place with hundreds of voices resounding. But we can make our offering nonetheless. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. In this moment of stillness between journeys, we hear that baby's cry, far off, but approaching. God of God, light of light, abhor not our perfect offering. We have no great choir, God, although we've got pretty good soloists. We have no grand choir, and so we listen for your angels. Our procession from this place will not be triumphal, but it will be honest and hopeful. We offer to you every step that has brought us to this place, graceful or stumbling. We offer to you every step we will take out there, agile or awkward. Friends, let us go now to Bethlehem and see this thing that has taken place, which the Lord has made known to us. There you go.